Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to have you all here. We've got a quorum, although it looks like we're pretty empty. We do actually have a quorum. We've got a few people online as well, and so welcome to our first Transcom meeting of the year. And with our new changes or in each of the cogs and new assignments, we want to go around and make sure we introduce everybody. And if you are new to Transcom, tell us just a little bit about at least where you're from and what you're doing, and I could ask you for something personal, but I won't. But introduce yourself and actually tell us a little bit about yourself. So, Rosie, you want to kick us off?
Rosie Hernandez, and I'm part of the admin team at WFRC.
Jordan Chandler, also part of the admin team at WFRC.
Michelle Bedoso, I'm a new member. I represent the Division of Air Quality Board. I work for Marathon here in Salt Lake City. I've been at our refinery for 26 years, and I've been actively involved in air quality issues for all of those years, sitting on the board for about the past 4 years or so, and dealing with a lot of state implementation plans for air quality issues. But personally, I've been here for 26 years in Utah, and I love it, and happy to sit on this committee and excited to learn about it. Thank you.
Mayor, can I just quickly note, in apropos of Michelle introducing herself, one of the responsibilities that Wasatch Front Regional Council has as a metropolitan planning organization is to analyze the air quality impacts of our transportation plans. And Wayne will correct me if I use the wrong words, or Joe will correct me, or Michelle will correct me. Oh boy, the pressure is now on. To demonstrate that our plans demonstrate conformity with the approved budgets in the state implementation plan for air quality. Okay, nod of approval. Yeah, so that's one of the requirements that we have under federal law. And so it's established that as part of our membership, we have representatives from the Division of Air Quality, the Department of under the Department of Environmental Quality, and the Air Quality Board participate in our work. And so, Michelle, welcome, and we appreciate having you here.
I'm Sherry Jackson. I am the mayor of Mill Creek, and I'm a new member.
Carlton Christensen, a trustee for the Utah Transit Authority.
Andrea Pearson, part of the WFRC admin team.
And Andrew Gruber, I'm executive director here at WFRC. Welcome, everybody.
Wayne Benyon, I'm the short range planning director here at WFRC.
John Crofts, Davis County Commissioner. Glad to be here.
Raylene Blocker, Morgan County Commissioner.
Sherry Bingham, Pepper City Mayor.
Sheldon Birch, Urda City Council and representing the Tooele Council of Governments.
Nicole Bordeaux, Planning and Engagement Officer for UTA.
Jordan Backman, Senior Planner with UDOT, and I guess you could say that I'm new, but I'm just substituting today.
Miranda Jones-Cox, Government Affairs here at WFRC.
Brandon Edwards with Roy City.
Jory Wallen with Roy City.
Matt Andrews, Roy City Manager.
Alma Haskell and the grant staff at Utah Transit Authority.
Joe Thomas from Utah Division of Air Quality. I'm here on behalf of Bryce Bird. And Andrew, thank you. All of the work your team has provided DAQ to have successful SIPs. Thank you.
John A. Nardone with WFRC.
Ben Withrich, WFRC staff on short range.
And Andrea, who do we have online?
The people joining us online are Mindy Hunziker with Layton City, Mayor Paul Fotheringham, Councilmember Eric Stromberg, and Councilmember Brooke D'Souza. We also have a couple attendees who are not panelists, but they're joining us as well.
All right, we have Mayor Fotheringham, who's new. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, Mayor Fotheringham of the Holiday City, and delighted to join this group. impressed that Sherry Jackson got there in person because we were both at the same activity and out in Midvale at the Council of Mayors. But anyway, yeah, I'm delighted to be able to serve on this and hope I can learn a lot and contribute something as well.
Fantastic. Councilmember Stromberg.
Yeah, so Eric Stromberg with Tula County Council, taking Jared Hamner's spot. The hope was my schedule was going to make it easier for me to attend, which I am here virtually. Apologize, didn't make it in person. Had another conflict that came up last minute.
Well, fantastic. Thank you at least for being here virtually. It's not always possible to sit in here with us, so we appreciate everyone that's online, especially with yesterday's snow. And I'm sure it wasn't a ton of snow, but I'm sure it scared all of you because we haven't seen any. And as he makes his way up, Mayor Palmer, do you want to introduce yourself?
Mayor Palmer and Harriman.
Yeah. Very good. Well, our first item on the agenda today is to approve the minutes from November 20th from our last meeting. They were sent out. Does anyone have would like to make a motion on the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, minutes stand. Well, I've got two items today. First, I'd like to congratulate Layton City on their Safe Streets for All federal grant. They were awarded the grant, pretty hefty grant, to construct a pedestrian bridge on 2200 West or 1000 East, depending on if you're in Layton or Clearfield. We appreciate them doing this right on our border. It's to grade separate the railroad crossing there. And Mindy Hunsaker is here. She's online, the Layton City traffic engineer. Mindy, any remarks you'd like to share with us about this award?
So yes, thank you for inviting me here today and to talk about this exciting project that we have planned in Layton City. I'd like to first begin by thanking Wasatch Front Regional Council for your partnership in helping Layton City secure this grant. This award would not have been possible without WFRC's Comprehensive Safety Action Plan that was adopted in 2024. Because of that plan, Layton City was eligible to apply for an implementation grant. More importantly, that plan also clearly identified 2200 West as a high priority segment within the high injury network, and it specifically recommended a pedestrian bridge at this location. So like was mentioned, we were awarded it in December for about $10 million. It's a pretty exciting project, and we've been working on this for quite a few years trying to find funding for this. So we're super excited for the opportunity we have to better help the pedestrians and cyclists within the city move around at this area. The project will construct a 265-foot grade-separated pedestrian bridge with connecting sidewalks. This bridge will provide safer access to the Denver and Rio Grande Trail and help connectivity for the pedestrians and cyclists in the area. Currently, we're working with the Safe Streets for All team to finalize that grant agreement. Once that agreement is executed, Layton City will move forward with procuring a consultant for that agreement or for the final design. The grant requires the construction to be completed within 5 years. So we look forward to having that done within 5 years. Like I've discussed, we've been working on this for many years. We've had a feasibility study and a preliminary 30% design we created about 3 years ago. So we look forward to procuring that consultant to finish that design and get working on that. Again, on behalf of Layton City, we appreciate WFRC's work on that plan to help us get this implementation grant. We're super excited for this project to move forward.
Well, thank you, Mindy. It is a great project. That's a massive safety concern there right in that area, and this will do some really good things there to prevent any issues. So thank you and congratulations. And second, I'd like to turn the time over to Miranda Jones-Cox for a brief update about our current legislative session.
Mayor, as Miranda's coming up, I'll just note that safety project award in Layton is a great singular example of what many communities can do and are planning to do. And she mentioned, and you mentioned, the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan that WFRC adopted that has projects, specific projects and project ideas around the entire region. So if you're thinking, we have projects like that, or we would like to look at ideas for safety projects like that, you can look at the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan. We can send it out again. Wayne, I'd suggest as a follow-on to this meeting, talk to Wayne, talk to anybody on our team about that, and also know, elected officials, that your city staff are involved through our technical advisory committee and looking at the safety action plan and project ideas, and that's true of your city or county. So we're working with your teams on these types of opportunities as well.
Yeah, and I would say that we applied as well.
Yeah.
As Clearfield, and we're really disappointed to see that our $10 million request didn't happen, and then to look down the list and see that Layton got it. But at least it was my sister city and connecting my city to it, so I'm okay with that.
Well, we'll take a shared dose of credit for Layton getting their award, but none of the blame for you not getting your award, Mayor.
Nice. Thank you, Mayor. Well, hello, everyone. It's nice to see familiar faces and also some new faces here in the room. Miranda Jones-Cox. I do our government relations work here at WFRC. As many of you are aware, we are in the thick of the state's 2026 legislative session. We have about 2 weeks, just over 2 weeks left of the legislative session, and the legislature has introduced as the highest amount of bills that they ever have. So it's things are heating up, and I'm here to share just a few brief updates related to transportation for you all. I will apologize; it may be duplicative to some information some of you have already heard from us today in some other meetings, but we'll be brief with the information. I do want to share that we have a number of resources that you all can tune into. We have a bill tracker that highlights a number of pieces of legislation, not just transportation, but also housing, economic development, land use, etc. And you can follow along to other bills there that we're not able to talk about here today. We also have an appropriations tracker. The legislature has their appropriations process where they're setting the state's budget, prioritizing and funding items, and then they also have their policy making and bill drafting work that they're doing simultaneously. And then at the end of session, we'll also have a lot of helpful resources to share with you all that wraps up exactly what happened. And we also have a newsletter that you can tune into that sends out weekly updates on exactly what's happening. So I just want to highlight 4 specific bills today that I think are relevant to this group, bills that you should know about that are would be making some meaningful changes in the transportation space. So I'll first start with this bill, SB 197. This is Transportation Funding and Governance Amendments by Senator Wayne Harper and Representative Kay Christopherson. You might be familiar with this bill. I know many of us in the room are, but what this would do is it would replace UTA's existing 3-member UTA Board of Trustees with a 7-member part-time commission. The commission would be appointed by members from the House and the Senate and the governor with recommendations or nominations from Council of Governments in the UTA area. The new commission would be in place by July 1 of this year, so it would be a pretty quick turnaround for our partners at UTA and for those nominating and appointing partners to get that the new commission in place. But again, some big changes at UTA. Representative Christopherson and Senator Harper had mentioned that in tandem with changes to the UTA governance structure, they also want to see the state play a greater role in investing in transportation, which is this next bill that I'll bring up, which is House Bill 586, Transportation Funding Amendments by Representative Cal Roberts, and will be sponsored by Senator Wayne Harper as well. What this bill does is it takes a portion of growth in the state sales tax over a baseline and will deposit it into the Transportation Investment Fund, or the TTIF, the funding source for capital development projects for transit in the state. Estimates that we've put together for what this bill would do is it would double funding into the TTIF by 2034, which, as you know, and coincidentally is the date in which the 2034 Winter Olympics will be held here in Utah. Funding from this new revenue for transit would be any eligible TTIF uses, including the double tracking of Front Runner. Notably, this mechanism would only grow if the economy grows. And so if we see down years in the economy, we would also see a dip in the revenue put here in the TTIF. But notably and importantly, this new mechanism wouldn't impact other existing transportation funding that the state has. So funding for the Transportation Investment Fund for roads, this is separate and would not be carved off the top of those other funding sources. So this is one we're really excited about. More funding for multimodal transportation continues to be a priority for WFRC up on the Hill. There might be, again, further changes to this moving forward, as with any of these bills we're discussing today, but this is probably one of the top bills that we're working on this session.
Miranda, just real quick,
Yes,
sorry
sorry.
to startle you. Before you move off of UTA stuff, you were talking about the governance, and I just want to make a note and express appreciation for Carlton Christensen and Beth Holbrook and Jeff Acerson, the other trustees. And I'll just echo what the sponsors of the bill, Senator Wayne Harper and Representative Kay Christopherson, have said, that they have expressed tremendous appreciation for the really good and hard and dedicated and skillful work that the trustees have put in. And this represents just the next evolution in the governance structure for UTA, going to a more traditional governance structure. But my friend and colleague, Carlton, sitting here, I just wanted to give him the praise that he deserves even as this bill moves along.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Agreed. We appreciate our trustees and the great work that they've put into UTA and for all the transportation partners. House Bill 575, fuel tax and production amendments. This is also by Representative Cal Roberts. This one you may have heard about in the news. The Speaker of the House, Mike Schultz, as well as Representative Roberts, have been vocal about wanting to reduce prices at the pump for consumers by providing a gas tax reduction. At one point, the bill would have taxed exported gas out of the state. That is not currently being taxed. That bill doesn't include that now. This is what the bill does now, is it temporarily reduces the gas tax by 6 cents per gallon for a fairly short period of time. The impact of that reduction would be around $40 million. That impact would be seen to UDOT as well as to BNC road funds. But I'll note that the bill has it drafted to hold local governments harmless, so BNC road funds harmless, by backfilling the impact to BNC with general funds. So that's one thing that Representative Roberts and the Speaker had kind of mentioned all along, is wanting to ensure that locals were taken care of, even if we did see a reduction in the gas tax. UDOT, however, will not be backfilled with general funds and will have to figure out how to cash flow, or basically eat the cost of that revenue loss to the transportation fund. So additionally, the bill makes some changes to some gas pipeline production and supply, makes various changes on that. We won't get into the details there, but I'll just note that we're not obviously super excited about a gas tax decrease. We want to ensure that there's continues to be stable and consistent funding for transportation. However, having it be a temporary cut and with the BNC backfill, I think is a promising step forward. And then last but not least, SB 242, this is Senator Harper, his transportation omnibus. Omnibus meaning there are handfuls of various provisions in this bill that do different things. So this is definitely one to watch. We anticipate probably additional changes here. There are a few notable things in the bill. One, it makes changes to local option sales taxes, county imposed local option sales taxes, the fifth local option sales tax to be specific. It would allow for $3 million in transit transportation investment funds to be used for rural bus replacement in rural counties. It amends specific highway reduction strategy requirements for Salt Lake City. This was in SB 195 last year that prohibited Salt Lake City from doing certain highway reduction strategies in downtown Salt Lake City. This bill continues to make changes to that structure and those requirements, including putting, additional restrictions on expanding the study area, codifying the tiered road structure that Salt Lake City has had to put in place. And then it makes a few additional changes, including allowing TTIF and active transportation investment funds to be able to use corridor preservation funds. And then defines the Utah Trail Network in statute. So as you know, the state, UDOT has put together the Utah Trail Network and has that dedicated funding for the trail network through the ATIF. So puts that definition in statute and then makes a number of other changes for UDOT. So those are a few key bills. There's plenty more that we could go through, but just wanted to get everyone a taste of some things we're watching and working on right now. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but like I said, some other places you could find information is in our newsletter and build tracker. So with that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Miranda. Does it feel to you that things are moving slower this year?
That's a interesting question. It's always
I'm just watching bills just really
trickle out.
Yeah, just sit for
Yeah.
a while before they start moving on. And, we always see the last 2 weeks of the session, just obviously go
Things-
gangbusters, but it just seems to me like so much of it is just moving
Yeah.
slow.
As the appropriation committees are no longer meeting, there's more time for standing committees as well as floor time. So hopefully we'll start to see some of that pick up, today, tomorrow. I think tomorrow they don't even have afternoon committees. They'll just be doing floor time. So hopefully they'll start kind of moving things along. But yes, maybe moving at a glacial pace. That could be a good way to put it.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, as you know, Transcoms is the policy advisory committee to Wasatch Front Regional Council for short range planning, transportation planning. So I'd like to invite Wayne Benyon to kind of come up and give us a description of our roles and responsibilities and briefly review the proposed changes to our schedule for the meetings for this year.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So 3 things I want you to remember from this presentation. There will be plenty of supporting material, but the 3 things I want you to remember are the role of Transcom is near-term or short-range transportation planning. The responsibility of Transcom is recommending approval of funding and approving funding. And the third thing I want you to remember is the process of the transportation planning process works a lot better when all of you and all of us engage and ask questions, participate actively. So those are the 3 things I'd like you to remember from this presentation. Thank you. Yes, well, got to set the bar high. So I'll do a little bit of background, then talk briefly about roles in a bit more detail, roles of Transcom and then responsibilities of Transcom in a bit more detail, and end with a bit on schedule. So with that, Let's see here. You're right. Okay, so the Wasatch Front Regional Council has both a metropolitan responsibilities as the metropolitan planning organization for Salt Lake, Davis, Western Weber, and southern, the very southeastern portion of Box Elder County. It also serves as the Association of Governments for those counties, and as well as Eastern Weber and Tooele and Morgan counties. And in both of those roles, the Regional Council provides resources and opportunities for assisting local governments to deal with growth and to move transportation priorities forward. A couple of the primary products that the Regional Council is responsible for are the Regional Transportation Plan, which looks out 20 to 30 years into the future, focuses primarily on transit and highway and active transportation capital improvements. And then another primary product that Transcom deals a lot with is the Transportation Improvement Program, and I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. And then, of course, I should also mention there's the Wasatch Choice Vision, which is locally driven and includes the Regional Transportation Plan, but also includes local land use plans looking out that same 20 to 30 year horizon. So there's an integration of land use and transportation planning. Whoops. And as the chair just mentioned, Transcom, they're on the left is the Short Range Policy Advisory Committee for the Regional Council, and the Regional Growth Committee on the right is the Long Range Policy Advisory Committee. Transcom has a lot of responsibility with the TIP. The RGC has a lot of responsibility with the Regional Transportation Plan. And then each of those committees are in turn supported by two technical advisory committees, one for Salt Lake County and one for Davis, Weber, and Southern Box Elder. So you probably saw in your packets the memorandum of agreement that was established a long time ago, kind of outlining the membership and responsibilities for both Transcom and the Regional Growth Committee. And again, the process that's been set up works a lot better when we get discussion at these meetings and conversations and dialogue and asking questions, providing input. And so we look forward to your active participation in Transcom. And then so that's a bit about the role of Transcom. Before I talk about responsibilities, probably, well, I just want to give a bit of context about this Transportation Improvement Program, one of the primary products of the Regional Council. So the TIP, as it's commonly known, outlines or is a compilation of 6 years worth of projects, multimodal projects, where funding has been committed to them. You might ask, where do all these projects come from? Many of them come from the Regional Transportation Plan, especially the major transit and highway projects. In order for those to move forward, first, they have to be on the RTP, but then second, they have to be on the tip. They can't move forward without being on the tip. And so the tip is a compilation of federal, state, and local funded projects. Many of them are administered by UTA and UDOT, but there are also all of the projects that WFRC administers, as well as significant local government projects. So at each of our Transcom meetings, you'll have the opportunity to take action on amendments to this transportation improvement program, which can include new projects, which includes oftentimes changes to projects that are already on the tip. And so the council meets 5 times a year and Transcom meets 5 times a year. Transcom has been delegated that responsibility by the council in months that they don't meet to make these, take these actions on various transportation projects, either adding them to the tip or modifying the ones that are already in the tip. And notably, so there are 4 transportation capital improvement programs administered by WFRC that you can see here on the screen. There are similar programs for outside of the MPO area for Tooele and Morgan counties that are administered by UDOT. Very similar programs by the same names. So this is what taking action on funding looks like. Approving the tip for public comment, recommending the tip to the regional council for approval, and taking action on both WFRC administered projects as well as UDOT and UTA and other projects in the tip.
I have a question, if I may.
Please.
Where does active transportation fit in there? Doesn't that come through this as well?
So active transportation, there are both state funding sources for that, and those projects will show up in the tip, and as well as WFRC funded projects. And primarily, really all 4 of these programs can include active transportation projects. Congestion mitigation air quality, or CMAQ, has a focus on reducing air quality emissions, and that sometimes takes the form of active transportation facilities. The Transportation Alternatives Program is almost entirely focused on active transportation projects. Does that answer?
We could actually put active transportation after each one of those.
Yes.
Would you rewrite it that way for us? Okay, I'll accept it this way.
Thank you, Mayor. So yeah, whether it's active transportation, whether you want to coordinate with the UTA on transit projects, whether you want to do highway projects or roadway improvements that address safety issues, or include sidewalk and curb and gutter and bike paths, all kinds of opportunities. So, and then this just gives you an idea of when those responsibilities occur during the year. And so, and there's a more detailed, for each of the 5 meetings in your meeting materials, there's more detail about proposed agenda items for each of the meetings, mostly related to these topics. So, and we would welcome any input on items you'd like to see discussed at these meetings.
Thank you, Wayne. Were you going to hand out the quiz on all of the acronyms, or were you just going to administer that orally? I couldn't remember what we discussed.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, you'll get plenty of acronyms to keep track of. And does anybody remember the three things I want you to remember from
I
this
just remember it was
presentation?
short.
Excellent. Near-term transportation planning, recommending approval and approving funding, and make sure to ask plenty of questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. In my haste to get Wayne up here, I did kind of skip over public comment. So I don't want to take that opportunity away from anyone. Was there anyone here for public comment? And online, Andrea? Okay. Well, then we will move past the public comment period. Today, we've got board modifications for the 2026-2031 Transportation Improvement Program, or as Wayne put it, the TIP. And we're going to turn the time over to Ben Withrich to cover those for us.
Perfect, thank you. So Wayne did a pretty awesome job there to introduce the TIP, and it's some kind of a banner that we want to wave and encourage everyone that this is a big deal for us as we move forward. The TIP is a transportation improvement program, and as mentioned by Wayne, it implements the long-range plans for highway and transit and mayor active transportation for all the projects in the regions. Helps us meet the short-range needs along the Wasatch Front, and it also provides for the maintenance of the existing system. So back in there's three items in pertaining to the TIP that we'll review today. There's the approved, there's a report. Well, I just lost total on my track of mine. Wayne just behooved me there with his. He's done a good job. Anyway, the approval of the board mod that the regional council took back in January. And then there is a board modification that'll come before Transcom today for your review and approval. And then we want to review the federal funds that were obligated during the past federal year to meet federal highways obligation requirements. So in your meeting materials, the regional council met back in January. And in your meeting materials is a copy of that signed resolution. And attached to that resolution are two tables. This table here that shows three projects, and then there's a table that has one more project. These projects were all reviewed and approved by the council, and this is an item for your information. And with, if there's no questions, we'll just continue forward. Is that all right?
Yeah. Were there any questions on the report? Okay, good. Go ahead then, Ben.
And Ben, as you said, all of information on all of those items was included in the materials that were sent out to the members prior to the meeting, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. So we do have a board modification before us. This is the board modification number 4 since the 2026-2031 TIP was approved last August. And there are 7 projects that we'll review, and each one's been identified in the table, and we'll go through each one of those projects. So on the first table there identifies 3 projects. This first project we'll look at is a project in Tooele. It's a request from Tooele County. This is on the Mormon Trail Road. This is a reconstruction project that goes from Main Street or SR 138 in Grantsfield to the Mormon Trail Road or SR 199. Initially, when this project was being reviewed for work, the intent was to road a mill and replace 6 inches of the road base. It was essentially to reclaim the asphalt that was there and then put 3 inches of new asphalt out on this road. However, as they were doing the preliminary engineering and preparations for the project, it was identified that this project needed significant more work. It needed a more robust treatment, which would require the removal of all 6 inches of asphalt, as well as the 6 inches of base. And so the intent of this board mod or this is to adjust the scope and increase the funds for this project, because now they're going to remove 6 inches of asphalt and the 6 inches of base and then replace the 6 inches of base with 6 inches of new asphalt. The additional funds for this project is being provided by Tooele County. It's an additional $1.1+ million. This will give us a total project estimated cost at 7.16 million plus. The next project that we have to look at is a project in Salt Lake. This is a request from UDOT. Yes, Mayor.
That last project, it looks like a great active transportation road. Will it have active transportation included on there? Will there be bike lanes with that, or at least a shoulder?
I'm not sure. I suspect that the shoulders would be eligible for this. I don't think that they'll stripe it for bike lanes, just because generally when they stripe in the traffic, the debris builds up on the shoulders more than leaving it unstriped, and so it makes it a little more messy for bike riders, as well as those that, but I'm not sure. I can follow up on that.
I'm just seeing how beautiful that is, and it's so empty, and it's right out there, and I think a bicycle would fit really good on there. I just want to make sure there's a sufficient shoulder. Thank you.
We will make sure that that discussion is brought before them. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Stromberg, who's online,
Thank you, Wayne.
anything you'd like to add about that?
Councilmember, you're muted.
Yeah, I think I missed part of the question. I think there was a whether there's a shoulder for bikes. Is that?
Yeah, that's correct. Or any bike lanes to it.
Yeah, I mean, currently it's definitely not, and you know, to your point, I travel that quite frequently, and you do see, especially when you get into the spring into summer, there will be some folks out there riding. Whether or not we can widen it enough to provide that lane, I think it's worth looking into for sure.
Even if you can't put bike lanes, if there's at least a shoulder over there, that would be really great.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if we can widen a little bit, I think it's worth looking into. I don't know what the additional cost might be, but yeah, we can see.
Thank you. So then the next project that we have to look at is a project, this is a request from UDOT. This is up in the Cottonwood Canyons. This is for a grade separated facility. As you may recall, when the big and little Cottonwood Canyon studies and environmental work, there was a phase identified in the regional transportation plan. This is part of that first phase improvement. This is for a separated facility there on Wasatch that'll enable the improvements there for a bus mobility hub. So the intent of this is to take the funds from the current program, which is the TIF Cottonwood Canyons funds. There's $56 million they'll take from that general fund to initiate this project, which is part of this first phase of improvements to the Cottonwood Canyons transportation. The next project that we have to look at is a project, this is in Salt Lake County. This is also a request from UDOT. This is on the Point of the Mountain transit improvements. Back in 2022, there was legislative action that advised UDOT and those to address the transit needs between Draper and Lehigh. After the conclusion of that study, it was identified that the first phase of that would be to implement shuttles or innovative mobility zones. An integrated mobility zone there will provide dedicated shuttles or on-demand service, bike share. It also partnerships with the private transportation companies such as Uber or Lyft. Whoops. And that's the end of my show. So this project here will implement the innovative mobility zones around the Lehigh and Draper front-runner stations. Utilizing the funds, there was $75 million programmed from the legislation, and the use and the implementation of the mobility zones will pull from these funds. That brings us to our next table, which identifies 3 projects. And the first project on that table there is a project up in Weber Canyon, or Weber. This is in the Ogden area. This is for the Weber State University Bus Rapid Transit, or OGX as it's referred to. This is a request from Ogden for operating subsidy. This is a project that goes from the Intermodal Center up to the university and then down to the hospital. The intent of this project is to strengthen UTA's funding plan for the new route. Since, as it's been in operation, or since it opened back in 2023. And this will help UTA in the transitioning to operating the line fully as planned funding allows, comes available. The request comes to the CMAQ program for an additional $749,000 plus, also bringing to the table additional local funds of $54,000 plus. This will give us a total program project of $2+ million.
Ben?
Yes.
This, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but this enables the OGX to operate without charging a fare?
That's quite, so as UTA operates the system, we're solely approving funds so that we are supporting the operating of the facility or of the buses itself is what we're approving funding for.
I see Carlton pulling the mic toward him.
Yeah. It does eliminate fare collection while you're on OGX, but if you're transferring to another bus line or front runner, you still have fare associated with that. So, there's a number of changes happening in downtown Ogden with their transportation system, and so while we typically wouldn't pursue anything beyond the initial 3 years, and that is approaching that 3-year timeframe, with the changes that they have and some service that we had to postpone due to low sales tax receipts. They pursued this to continue it on for a few more years. And so we're certainly supportive of them. It wasn't something that we could take on without it, and know that it obviously it's selective from the council's perspective.
Okay.
I will say that there is some rumblings on the FTA side about having zero fare transit, and those conversations are ongoing. They're not finalized, but they're certainly not in effect. We don't know how that would affect this if they were to implement that, but I think that's a problem for another day and could be remedied if it had to be.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you. The next project then that we had to look at is a project, a request from UDOT. This is on 7th East. This is for a pavement rehabilitation project running from 17th South to 4th South. This project is to rehab 7th East. So they will rotomill 1.5 inches of asphalt off and then replace that 1.5 inches with new asphalt. This request is to change the scope of this project and add to this project because as the years of overlaying has taken place on 7th East, you can see that the medians now are no more than just a little stripe on the pavement or a little bump if you get enough clearance. So the intent is to change this project, and first they'll come in and they'll rotomill down the project. Then they'll come in and they'll put the overlay on, and then they will raise the medians, something to where it's similar to what we see on Bangerter Highway so that we get that safety factor back on 7th East. So this project is a request to change the scope, adding an additional $700,000 to the project, bringing us a total project value of $4.2+ million. That brings us to a project then that's in several locations in Morgan and in Salt Lake. This is on I-84 and I-15. It's actually a pump replacement, which is interesting and unique. So there's 2 locations. There's 3 locations in the Salt Lake area there. You can see the little pink dots there. And then there's two up on I-84 up by Morgan area. So there are pump houses that are necessary to keep the water as it comes off the freeway, and ponds, it's necessary to keep the ponds under control as well. So these are some pictures of the pump house up in the Morgan area. Kind of run down, worn out, the equipment's worn out. And so what it is to replace and rebuild and upgrade all the components in the pump houses for Region 1 and Region 2 on these two facilities. This is a new project. It'll bring $4 million to the program for a total estimated project cost of $4 million. And these funds come from the statewide transportation solution program. That brings us to our last table, which identifies a project that's on I-80. So this initial project on I-80 was for deck rehabilitation and replacement on various bridges on I-80 between Bangor Highway and I-15. As they were looking at, and as you're aware, there's a lot of projects going on, it was identified that this perhaps wasn't the most important use right now, but what they would like is to change the scope, move this project to deck rehab and replacement on the I-80 between Bangor Highway and approximately 6400 West, as well as on Bangor Highway from I-80 to approximately 12th South. And they'll address those structures first. This project is no change in the amount of funds. It's a $50 million project, and they'll address those other structures for the same programmed amount. But these are all the projects that are part of the board modification.
Thank you, Ben. Are there any questions for Ben? Okay, well then seeing none, thank you. I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution to modify the 2026-2031 Transportation Improvement Program as presented. But not by everybody at once.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Well, thank you, Ben.
Wonderful. Thank you. Mr. Chair, can I continue on then with the obligation
You
report?
absolutely can.
May I
Oh, hold on.
interject
Yes.
one thing, Ben, before you go on? I just want to raise something. It's not part of this TIP amendment, but it's actually a project that I've had some folks ask me questions about, and that's the Mountain Green interchange in Morgan County. You know, that's a project that we've talked about for a long time, and you're not seeing anything on that in this report. What the Transportation Commission, the State Transportation Commission is planning to do, and I'm looking at Jordan because he'll correct me if I say anything wrong here, or the council member will, or the commissioner will, of course, is they're planning to move that into the first phase of the rural area long-range transportation plan. And then subsequently follow that with funding being added to that. So sort of in the vein of Wayne explaining before how these things work, first projects are in the long-range plan, the regional or our regional transportation plan or the state long-range transportation plan. Then they ultimately make it into phase one, meaning needed in the next 10 years. And then they're eligible to be considered for funding. And that's when they come to the TIP or the STIP to actually have funding allocated to them. So, you know, Commissioner, I don't know if you might have been thinking, because this has been a topic that's come up relatively frequently about that particular project, like, why aren't we seeing that project here? It's because there's a staging that happens. And on that particular one, we're anticipating the commission to move that into their long-range plan, and then subsequently the funding action will happen. Yeah, I use that as part one as a project update on that because people have been asking about it, and two, just a little further illustration of the way the process works. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you, Andrew.
You want to jump into the obligation of funds?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes. So every year, Federal Highways requires that WFRC, UDOT, and UTA, we put together a report on funds that were obligated. An obligation is the federal government's legal commitment to reimburse the state or other entities for federal share of the project's eligible costs. One thing just for a note of information, in the state of Utah, when we're doing a local government project and we're using federal funds and the local government gets the bill, that bill then is given to UDOT. UDOT is the one that steps forward and pays the bill and then turns around and waits for the obligations or those funds to be reimbursed back to the state, which is quite a benefit. That doesn't happen in all the states. Some of them, that local is held waiting for that reimbursement. And so we're pretty fortunate here in the state. But as we go through this obligation report, things that you need to be aware of is the obligated projects are not necessarily initiated or completed during this year. They may be spanning over several years. And then also you need to be aware that the obligated amount reflected in this report may not be equal to the final amount of funds that are programmed on the project. So let me show you statewide. Here we are with the federal obligations and the match. So there was over $655 million that were obligated in the state this past year in federal fiscal year 2025. Of that 655,000 plus, 617,000 or 617 million plus was federal funds. 38 million plus was the local match for those funds. Now, there's a lot of things that go on in each project. Each project has a lot of components to it: safety, all active transportation, capacity improvements, all sorts. But we've divided them and we've tried to break it down, and we have it to just these few silos that we put the funds in. But also obligation, there's another animal called deobligation when funds come back into the programs. And so if we're looking at this column right here, for example, this is under the reconstruction or capacity. In the state there was at least $258 million used in reconstruction or capacity type projects. But this number right there doesn't really reflect how much was really done or not, because some of those funds are deobligated, so that minimizes the amount that was obligated. If that kind of makes sense, let me illustrate here with a couple other things. So just in that category right there, there was 123 projects that we categorized under reconstruction or capacity. There were 188 obligations towards the federal funds there, totaling more than $281 million. There was also 78 deobligations totaling more than $22+ million. And so there were 292 actions done, and that totaled 258, which is where we get that total there on the top of the amount. So you've got some obligating, which we're setting money aside, and there's the deobligating when those funds are returned back to the program. So that helps us understand why under minor structural rehab there, we have a minus $88,000. Well, there were some funds obligated, but there were also some funds deobligated, but the balance shows that we're 88,000 coming back to the program.
Hey, Ben, is it fair to say that much of the time deobligations represent cost savings on the project? Like if the project comes or is accomplished with less than the project budget, those funds are then deobligated and returned to the program. Is that fair?
Yes, thank you, Wayne. That's a perfect way to say that. So we're going to look at we'll keep it in the graph form here. So statewide then, you can see that there were 635 projects then that some action took place on this past federal fiscal year. In the WFRC area, so that's essentially from Utah County all the way up through Brigham City, we had more than 370+ million federal funds obligated. That was 350+ million was federal, 20+ million was the local match for those projects. Again, the categories that were the same as the statewide. Now, if doggone. 310 projects. So in your meeting materials, there are the tables that identify all of the projects that are in the WFRC area so you can see where they are. But in the past, we used to sort them by fund description, and so it would combine them together. But it made it pretty hard if you were looking for your project and you were trying to thumb through 36 pages to find where your project was. So we put it by project pin, and that's the number that your project can be identified for, which makes it a lot quicker to find your projects. And each one of those, you can see like right out of the gate there's 5 listings for pin 8601. That's because there were 5 actions there that are substantial, whether obligating or deobligating. So that having been said, if we were to look at the programs that this body has a responsibility to recommend and to program, that's those acronyms. The SDP is the Surface Transportation Program. We got it in Salt Lake, and we got it in the Ogden-Layton area. There's the CMAQ, which is Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Program. We've combined that as well as the TAP program, which is Transportation Alternative Programs, and then the CRP, which is Carbon Reduction Program. Those are the amounts that were obligated in the Wasatch Front. There were 96 projects that had obligations. That means federal-wise, there was almost $53 million obligated in federal funds, and there was a match of just under $3 million for the funds. But you can see where those projects kind of fall into. Now, what's hidden on this screen that you can't see is every one of these projects has an active transportation component, and especially under resurfacing or surfacing improvements and the construction or capacity in projects have active transportation components in there. So even though we do have a category that says bike and peds and transit over there on the far left, you're right, 16 plus million. There's actually more active transportation improvements that have been done in the projects. In the program or in your meeting materials, there's also a table that shows each one of those programs and the projects that had the obligations or deobligations. Then we have the transit. Now the transit is a little different critter. In the past, when we've gotten the report back, they work under grants, and that grant could span over multiple years, and every year that grant was active, we considered the whole grant obligated during that year, which wasn't fair to the transit report. It was giving us some obscure numbers, kind of warped the report there a little. So we've changed this to identifying the grant status. And so we have 403 million plus in capital improvements under active grants that are going on right now, as well as 138 plus million under operations, planning, and maintenance. So in the tables for there, we've set this up a little more so that you, on the top, there's a summary there for the active grants during the federal fiscal year 2025. You can see the federal amounts, local amounts, the total amounts, how much was capital improvements, how much was operation and planning and maintenance. We also, what we can identify now in this time around is the summary of the grants that closed out during 2025, whether they obligated all their money then or whether they didn't obligate any because it had been obligated the year before. Those numbers aren't changing the report numbers, but you still have the federal amount, the local amount, and the total amounts, and whether it was capital improvements or operating. Now, in associating with that, there are the table. This is purposely this small, so you can't check my numbers. No. This is this small because I want to show you the color difference in the table. Down on the right-hand side or left-hand side, going down, you'll see some bright green, and that's in both. That bright green indicates that that grant initiated in 05 and closed in 05. So you can see the kind of work that was happening right there. And there's 3 or 4 tables that show the transit benefits and the status of the grants there. And so I hope that gives us a little cleaner review of what's happening in our transit funding as well. But that would be all that we have for the federal obligations.
Carlton?
Ben, is there ever, I mean, unobligated funds are always a target if somebody's looking to claw back money. Does this report ever show unobligated funds? Or is everything either obligated or deobligated, but then taken up by other projects?
And that's an excellent question. So a lot of times when we have a board modification like those that we reviewed earlier, a lot of those projects are able to move forward or able to receive those additional funds because of the deobligations that come back into the program. When they come back into the program that we have the responsibility to program, if we have a request, like we had the request from the Ogden there on the OGX, that 700,000 plus in CMAQ funds, those were cost savings that we had from other projects that we hadn't had a chance to reprogram, which would be in this next cycle. But we're able to utilize those in this board modification.
I'm going to add to that, Carlton, your good question. So every year, Ben was talking about obligation of federal funds that come into our state for transportation. Every year in August, there is, through the U.S. Department of Transportation, there's a process that they call the August redistribution. And in shorthand, what that means is they look around, the federal government looks around the country and says, where have the funds that we have, see, now I got to be careful about my words, allocated, it's good enough, right? Apportioned, the funds that we have apportioned out to states and regions and communities around the nation, where have they been obligated? Where have they not been obligated? And then they will redistribute, meaning they will literally claw back funds from some states and then redistribute them to other places. Utah has an exceptional track record of not having funds clawed back from us. That's a result of perhaps two things. One, we grow so fast and we have so many needs that we put these funds to use. One, two, and I'll note, you can see from all the work that Ben is just talking about and everything that Wayne described, our teams at WFRC and UDOT and UTA working with your communities are really, really on top of this stuff. They are sharp at managing the funds and using and tracking carefully the eligibilities for funds, putting federal funds only on the right projects, prudent selection of projects, making sure that funds are obligated to projects that are ready to go so that we don't end up having funds clawed back from us. We put these funds to really good use. And while I'm talking about that, I'll add one more thing. And that is, relatively speaking, the share of transportation needs and investments that come from federal funds in Utah is among the lowest, if not the lowest in the entire country, meaning we rely less on federal funds for our infrastructure investments than other places. That's in part a product of how much resources our state and our local governments have invested in transportation, recognizing how important it is. But the federal funds are critical, a really critical element of the program, and we manage them so effectively to reduce the negative impacts of the regulatory requirements that come from taking federal funds. Taking federal funds can bring additional administrative requirements that can add cost, but we manage the projects well to reduce the burden of those additional regulations, always comply, and reduce the burden and make sure that we're using those funds effectively. So everybody should be proud of the good work that the teams and it's not me, okay? So it's our folks in collaboration with the other MPOs, with UDOT, with UTA, and the cities and counties. We do this as good as anybody in the country. So thank you.
Mayor, can I just throw one more thing?
Yes,
in?
sir.
Sorry to delay this. I think the number in the slide that Ben showed on the transit side is reflective. It's encouraging to, on the proposals currently in front of the legislature for some additional transit funding. But if you look back in UTA's history, our reliance on federal funds for transit implementation and construction has been pretty heavy as a share point, you know, and at some point, maybe the state will overshadow that piece. But I think, you know, unlike on the highway side, we have been very dependent on transit projects, on discretionary funding and formula funding. And so when the conversation comes up on federal compliance and those discussions, that's why it's had such an overbearing piece on the transit side. Until it gets replaced or augmented, it's pretty hard to ignore it. And we've been very fortunate, and you know, and it's been a good partnership. But it's something that is a little bit different.
Fortunate and effective in capturing available discretionary grants.
I want to emphasize what Andrew said and toot his horn even better. I think it's the work that he does and the other MPOs and the way they collaborate together, and not just them and other things, that makes that work so well, that we bring that in and we are effective with what we're given, and we don't have to send that back, and we use that. That's does amazing things, because we can't do that without these federal funds coming in. We couldn't do half. I say half of what we do, even though it's not half the money, but half what we do, because we tie that in there and makes it available to do the other things.
Yeah, thank you. And we're always motivated by the recognition that these are taxpayer dollars. You are too. And that we want to use them prudently and really carefully. And we always strive to do that. And I think collectively we do a good job of that.
Well, thank you, Wayne. Appreciate it. We were just trying to drag this out as long as we possibly could, because I got Matt Anderson sitting here from Roy, and just thought, you know, if we can just delay it, I can keep Roy here for a little longer. But
I have a couple of dad jokes for you. Well,
Roy is wrapping up a couple of roundabout projects that were made possible in part with funds that were allocated from WFRC, and so they are here to kind of just give us some overview of the projects.
They gave me the mic. That's a little bit scary, but I'm Jory Wallen. I'm with Wasatch Civil Engineering. We're the city engineer for Roy City. And we just wanted to talk a little bit about this. Hopefully, we talked through a lot of this process of how these funds are allocated. Hopefully, this provides some tangible evidence of the benefit that it can provide these communities. So this project right here is the 6,000 South roundabout and 3,100 West. We have funding for another project, but those funds are allocated a little bit later. So this project was just completed this last year. Before we started, we have Matt Andrews, who's the city manager, and Brandon Edwards, who's the public works director for Roy City as well. Also, we appreciate WFRC and the support they give. I have Ben on speed dial. He gets phone calls from me regularly to kind of talk through some of this process. And really, we really appreciate the support that he's provided. The other thing that's been pretty successful for us is joint funding. So WFRC has provided funding, and then WACOG, which is a Weber County local transportation fund. Both of those entities have been really supportive in making this happen and kind of collaborating together to make sure this works. So Brooke Stewart from Weber County has been an excellent resource for us as well. So kind of the purpose here, 6,000 South is a busy road, east to west corridor that was a dangerous intersection. There was two stop signs, there's a two-way stop with the through traffic going on 6,000 South. There had been plenty of accidents there. There was a fatality in 2022, and this was really a prime spot for some major improvements. Pedestrian traffic east to west primarily, and there was a need for some improvements. So as we looked at different options, we submitted some funding requests to WFRC, their CMAQ program, and proposed the roundabout at this intersection to keep continuous flow. The north to south traffic isn't quite as heavy, but it's that east to west, and then those left-hand movements from the north to south traffic that became pretty dangerous. And so flagged that there, proposed a roundabout, submitted for funding. Also kind of maintains speeds in that area, prevents just people flying up and down that road. It is a one lane in each direction with a center turn lane road, and so it is we don't want major high speeds through there. Kind of the project team budget. So as many of you probably are aware, the way that this works is the funds become managed through UDOT. They assign a UDOT project manager who was Brady Roberts, and Glenn Ames started on the project but worked with us. And then we hire a UDOT consultant to come in and lead the design. That has to be somebody that's in the UDOT pool. ESI Engineering was the design. They did the construction management, and STAP Construction did the construction. The project was funded partially from WACOG, 1.1 million, WFRC 722, and then there was a local match. Once we got to the design stage, which sometimes takes some effort, we had a design kickoff in June of 2024. It was advertised in March of 25, and then construction was completed in September. So this project is done. There was the question that somebody asked Brandon and said, are there any punch list items? And I think we're done. I think it's been buttoned up and highly functional. Not to say that there weren't hiccups or frustrations along the way, but anybody that drives it and sees it is really pleased with how it's turned out. And I think the city is happy that this has gone as successful as it has. And really, I wanted to keep this short, but the major, after we got this project done, STAP submitted into the ACI, which is the American Concrete Institute. They submitted it for award, and this project was recognized by that institute for an award, and they made a great video, and they just explained it probably better than I could. And so we're going to show the video. I will warn you, Jordan, there's about the way that this video was set up was when the project team was invited up. So there's about a 20-second window for somebody to walk up. So you might have to fast forward it a little bit, Jordan. But really, we just want to say thank you for the support from WFRC. These local cities, local governments, these projects would be a significant burden on the budgets for these cities. And so to be able to partner with WFRC and WACOG to get these projects funded, it's critical for the success of this. This road 6000 connects not just Roy, but communities to the west as well. And we appreciate the consideration and the support from you guys on this project. So thank you. And we'll show this video. You might have to, it's probably 10 or 15 seconds in. So we could watch in awkward silence, but.
Welcome to the ACI Intermountain Chapter Excellence in Concrete Awards. Thank you for being here. As your project and company name is announced, please immediately step forward to accept your award plaque. We kindly ask that you hold your applause until after the project description has been read. Now, on to the awards.
I always take my wife every year to the Excellence in Concrete Awards. Don't you all do that with your spouses also, right? So fun. It's so exciting.
Our first award goes to 6000 South and 3100 West Roundabout. Category: pavements and flatwork, streets. Owners: Utah Department of Transportation and Roy City. Engineer and Testing Agency: ESI Engineering. Contractor: STAP Construction. Concrete supplier: Geneva Rock Products.
The 6000 South and 3100 West Roundabout in Roy, Utah transformed a traditional four-way stop into a modern, continuous flow roundabout that improves safety, traffic efficiency, and community character. Delivered in partnership with the Utah Department of Transportation and Roy City, the project demonstrates how transportation infrastructure can be both highly functional and visually distinctive. At the center of the roundabout is a decorative island featuring an intricate flower design. Custom radius concrete curbing defines each petal with precision, providing a durable architectural framework that supports the artistic layout. Surrounding the island is a reinforced concrete truck apron, carefully shaped and sloped to accommodate large freight vehicles while creating a clear visual transition from the adjacent asphalt pavement. The project presented notable construction challenges, including tight radii, variable cross slopes, and complex grading transitions. To address these demands, the project team utilized custom and flexible formwork to achieve smooth, continuous curves without faceting. Mechanical paving equipment was not suitable for the curved and super elevated sections, requiring experienced ACI certified finishers to complete the work and ensure proper surface smoothness and drainage. Additional concrete features include ADA compliant pedestrian ramps, splitter islands, and integrated stormwater structures that support safe circulation throughout the intersection. Quality testing confirmed that concrete strengths met or exceeded the specified 4,000 psi. Today, the roundabout serves as both a critical transportation improvement and a recognizable community landmark. Congratulations to the project team for delivering a lasting improvement to the Roy community.
Again, we know that through this process, local government projects on a locally funded can sometimes be simpler and easier. Federal funds, they do require a little more scrutiny, a little bit more oversight. But we really appreciate the effort that WFRC and all the staff and UDOT provided to help get this through and make sure that it was compliant with all the federal requirements. So again, thank you. Hopefully this provides some tangible evidence of the good that these funds are being used for.
How much property acquisition did you have to do, and how was that on acquiring that?
So we did have to we did have to purchase acquisition from all four corners, and then there was one other property that was adjacent that had to purchase a little bit. Honestly, it was quite seamless. That was not the major hurdle in this project. Some projects it's worse. We've ran into that on others. But in this case, they were kind of a corner clip on four properties. And obviously, as you know, like there's the back and forth and working with them. I think the biggest complaint they got was they liked when the road was shut down in front of their house. And so then when we had to open it back up, that was probably their biggest complaint.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having
No,
us.
I was going to put Matt on the spot to ask a little bit more about sort of how your community, as you deal with projects like this. Roy's a relatively small community, and when you do a major construction project like this, and while you're up there, I'll ask, as you've been working on other projects around your front runner station, like how have your residents reacted? Did they say like, oh, in the future, we're really looking forward to this, but is it frustrating while the construction's happening?
Yeah, it's definitely frustrating when it happens. This 6,000 South, to kind of put into perspective, I know we all have the community or the intersection in our communities that are a constant problem. It's the intersection that's people come in to city council and they complain that another car's in my front yard or there's another accident. It's the stop sign that has the lights around it. Jory did mention a fatality there. But it was always that there was a traffic accident there. On a personal note, when I was a kid, I grew up in that area, and a childhood friend had an auto pedestrian accident, was a paraplegic, and ultimately passed away from that. So, you know, that whole community knew about that accident. So we all like wanted something to change there. In relation to the train station, there's always headaches, right? You're going to get a complaint one way or another. But it's just something ultimately when it's done, it's calm over there. There's no traffic, there's no stacking with the stop signs. And so we can always point to those past projects to say, hey, this is what we have to look forward to. So I don't know if that answered all your question.
Thanks, Matt, and I apologize for calling you Anderson. Just,
No,
you
I
know,
get it all the time. I've been called worse. So.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he's my
Thanks,
KSL friend, but that's irrelevant, you know. We appreciate you being here.
Yep.
And that is a phenomenal roundabout. My son lives over in that same area, so it's really pretty. I was glad that the curb was actually high enough to not have it be a jump.
Yeah.
So,
And if Representative Ariel DeFay's bill passes, and it looks like it's on its way to pass, it will make it that you do not have to signal entering or exiting a roundabout. So think about whether you think that's
so
a good
we're
idea.
taking away
'Cause
your
it's so
source
confusing.
of income, Matt.
Yeah, right.
We know the police were just going to camp out there
It's
and issue
confusing.
tickets.
When you're in a roundabout and you have your signal on, everybody turns right out of a roundabout. So where are you? Anyway, it's confusing.
Yeah. Um, it is one of the conundrums in this state, you know, is, our roundabouts are small.
Yeah.
And if you turn on your signal, by the time it goes on, you've passed the place you were turning.
Yeah.
If you have to wait to have that signal
Right.
turn, and now no one knows which
Right.
turn you're taking. So, yeah, I appreciate her, her willingness to take on that bill.
Great.
Well, thanks again. Our seventh item, we've got as part of our compliance for annual training requirements, there was a link sent out in your, in previous email for you to take the, open and public meetings training. If you haven't done it, we're sending out another link just in case. And if you haven't done it 2 or 3 times as a council member or mayor, that you probably are not doing your part, to keep that state website going. That'll be going out to you. And so, our next meeting is, when are we? April 30th. And, that is normally we're the third Thursday of the month. That is actually the 5th Thursday. Just so you make note of that. Is there anything else we need to bring out? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. We're done. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.